They say there comes a time in every fish keeper's life where he inadvertently exterminates an entire tank of livestock. That day has come for me. Now, I wasn't going to make this video because, quite frankly, it's embarrassing. But I made a promise to myself when I started this channel that I was not going to hide information, that I was going to show you the real deal. I wasn't going to just put out good content and edit things to make it look like I know what I'm doing all the time, like I'm some professional. So here's another failure for you. This one kind of hurts. I have gassed a tank and destroyed my orange-eyed blue tiger colony. I'm going to show you how it happened and let this video be a warning to you. If you're using CO2, don't get complacent. When you think you've got things down pat and everything's habit, that's when mistakes will happen. This is the orange-eyed blue tiger tank. Those that follow the channel have probably seen it. I have the light off because it's quite frankly just been sitting here for a couple of weeks because it's been a few weeks since this incident happened. Again, I wasn't sure if I was even going to make this video. The tank next to it is the Neocaridina shrimp tank, and fortunately, as you see, everybody's swimming around happy. This tank was gassed as well. And while it looked different at the time, this little 10-gallon grow-out tank is also on the three-way system, and it was gassed as well. Fortunately, this didn't have any livestock in it, so, no harm, no foul on this tank. Alright, so what happened? Well, as you guys know, I run CO2 generators, the citric acid baking soda ones. Well, the 2-liter version of the system I have does not have a regulator. The pressure is just controlled by the needle valve, which I'll show you here in a minute. So when these bottles get low, what happens is the pressure drops. So your bubbles per second drops and you don't get as much CO2 in your tank. So as the pressure drops in the canister, I open the needle valve a little more and a little more and a little more until we're down to like that last 25 psi or whatever, and I just spin the needle valve all the way open. Have you figured out what happened yet? When the pressure gets low like you see here, that's when you normally open this needle valve all the way, because with 3 tanks running off of 1 bottle, you don't get much CO2 out of it, but you want to drain the rest out of the canister. But once the canister was empty, I went ahead and took the top off here, refilled everything, put the top back on. Guess what I forgot to do? I never closed the needle valve. Because of my commitment to work outside of my fish hobby here, I do most of my stuff at night. For example, it's about midnight now. These tanks are going to turn off here in a second. Well, the CO2 had already shut off for the evening because it's on a timer. Good time to go ahead and refill all the ingredients and make more CO2. I did that. I plugged the system back in, but I had no way to know that the needle valve was all the way open because the solenoid was clicked off due to the timer. Alright guys, sorry for the cut and interruption in this story, but this part for some reason didn't film. So what happened is I went to bed, and normally I get up about 8 o'clock in the morning, but the next morning I woke up at 6:30 and I heard this really strong hissing sound, kind of like air going through an air stone, but really loud. It was a fizzing sound, and I immediately knew what happened. So I jumped out of bed and I ran in here, and all of the Neocaridina shrimp in this tank were hanging on the floating plants and were trying to get as close to the surface as possible. I've never seen about 100 or more shrimp hanging on a couple of plants. It was definitely disturbing to see. So of course I unplugged the CO2 immediately, took the diffuser out of the water because they hold pressure for a while, especially with that much pressure going through it. And I did the same here to the orange-eyed blue tiger Caridina shrimp tank. Unfortunately, at this point, I knew this tank might have been in trouble. Most of the shrimp were just laying on their side, and they weren't moving. So at this point, I realized this tank is priority. I checked the bottle to see how bad the situation was. We had pumped 200 psi of CO2 into these tanks in a matter of 30 minutes. My CO2 turns on at 6 a.m. I forgot to mention that. So obviously the drop checker was beyond yellow. I grab an emergency air pump that I keep an airline and an air stone on. I drop it in the tank, plug it in, and we start to get the CO2 out of the tank. At this point, I go and I get a splitter so I can do the same thing to the Caridina tank. Now I got airlines running into both tanks. The diffusers are out of both tanks. There's not much more I can do at this point. The damage is done. So I start to try and see if there's a chance of survival. I came back every 30 minutes or so. The Caridinas in the right-hand tank weren't doing much better. But to my delight, a lot of the neocaradinas had started to come down off of the floating plants, and while they didn't look very good and I thought I was going to lose some, they were turning around. Now I'll finish the story up with some good news. We didn't lose a single one of these beautiful orange neocaridina shrimp. A couple of them did fall on their side. A couple of them didn't look like they were going to make it, but they did. They perked up, they made it. I did not have a single loss. So I kept monitoring the caridina tank for a while, hoping that some of these shrimp would turn around. Maybe they would get some oxygen, they'd kind of come back to life. And to my delight, I did find two, and they were babies, but they were still running around. So this was the first little guy that I saw. And then the next time I checked on the tank, I found this little guy here. So that brings us to the end of this story and the end of this tank. As you can see, I didn't do anything to this tank. I shut all the systems off, turned the light off, and I just let it do whatever it did. So what I'm going to do, because this tank is overrun with algae and essentially there's no recovery in this tank, I'm going to completely strip it, disassemble it. I have another tank and a new plan for this spot on the shelf. As I take this tank apart, I'm going to hope and pray that I find those two baby shrimp. If I do, this bowl is set up for caridina pH, and so I will put them in here. But I have thought about just recovering this tank, pulling all the plants out, scraping all the algae and whatever, because the Bucephalandra and the little Anubias nana petite probably could be saved, and I could rescape this thing and keep the hardscape in place. But emotionally, I just can't do it. I can't look at this tank set up this way, where it was supposed to be my orange-eyed blue tiger breeding tank. I had finally got success after about 4 months of trying to get these things to breed, and they were finally doing well, and then I ended up gassing them. So I need to tear the tank down and do something else with it. So that's what I'm going to do tonight. I'm going to disconnect everything. I'm going to take all the stuff out, and tomorrow I have a day off. I'm going to begin anew with a new tank and a new plan, but this 5-gallon is not going to stay in that spot. Hopefully that can help me get over this situation. My goodness, guys, I took the first plant out, and look, there's one of the little baby shrimp. Well, he's more like a juvenile now, but there's some good news. We still have an orange-eyed blue tiger. Looks like a male, but maybe the second one is still in there too. I'm going to catch this guy out of there, and that really just lightened this video mood up a little bit for me. Guys, there's a happy ending to this story after all. We might be able to start a colony again. Not because I found these two, but we have somehow managed to have a bunch of baby shrimp in there. There's 3 that I caught. There's 1. See if I can find another one. There's 2, little baby, and I think that's number 3 right there. Yep, there's number 3. See him moving around above those 3 dot lights? 4. There's 4 of them in there. Oh yeah, that's right, I caught 4. And here's the tank in its current state. And I saw another one swimming around in here, and I tried to catch them, and I lost them because they're so small. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to let this tank sit and settle, and I'm going to try and find all the little babies in here if I can. I'm not going to let this colony go to waste. I am not just going to suck all this water out and throw these shrimp down the toilet. I am going to find them, and we are going to restart this colony and make a positive out of a negative. I've changed the water in the bowl, and I've also acclimated these guys over 4 hours with a little drip system. Time to put them in. Alright guys, I'm prepared for the criticism. It was a stupid mistake, I know, but it is definitely a lesson to be learned, and I don't think it's going to happen again. However, to make sure that it doesn't happen again, I went up on Amazon and I ordered one of these three-way valves. Previously, I was just using airline valves. So I ordered this guy here, and it has its own needle valves per section, right? So it is kind of a secondary backup that I have those needle valves set for particular bubbles per second, and it can hold the entire pressure of the bottle if I accidentally put that into this system. So I've got that hooked up, and I forgot to film it, so being that I'm at work doing this outro here, I can't show it to you on the bottle, but you'll see it in future videos probably. It's a self-explanatory little thing, right? Screw it on, it's got 3 different needle valves. So if anything other than your criticism, I hope you guys maybe will take a little look at your CO2 system and just be a little more careful. You know, we do this every single day. You fill those bottles every month, and you think you know what you're doing. And that one time, you just kind of mess up, and this is the result. But let's focus on the happy part of this here. That bowl is going to be the new orange-eyed blue tiger shrimp bowl. And so I'm going to keep you updated on that and let you know all the breeding that happens in there. Sorry for the crazy backlighting here. I know I'm a horrible videographer. That being said, don't forget to subscribe to this horrible video content, and I'll catch you guys on the next video. Thanks for watching.